Hey everyone, welcome back to Test Maestro, your ultimate guide for crushing the digital SD. In today's video, we are going to dive deep into one of the trickiest grammar questions you will face on the English section, essential and non-essential clauses. Many students struggle with this topic because it's hard to know when to use commas to set off information and when not to. You might think a comma always belongs there, but that's not the case. Misunderstanding this can lead to easy mistakes, costing you valuable points. But don't worry, because by the end of this video, you'll have a clear step-by-step strategy to recognize and answer these questions confidently. This video consists of all the rules or information that you need to know about essential and non-essential clauses. So stick around and let's get started. What are these clauses? Like the name says, non-essential means something that's not essential, something that's not important to be there in a particular sentence. Ideally, this non-essential bit or this extra information in a sentence is given in between two commas, two dashes, or even two brackets. Let's look at an example for this. The Statue of Liberty, comma, which was gifted by France in 1886, comma, stands in New York Harbor. Now, there is some piece of information given over here in between two commas. Let's remove this from the sentence and see if we can still make some grammatical and logical sense out of whatever is remaining. Now, without that clause, without this entire information, what I have is basically the Statue of Liberty stands in New York Harbor. And this is exactly what the sentence is trying to say. This is the main information. This part in between two commas is nothing but some extra information about the Statue of Liberty, which if removed, the sentence is still grammatically making sense and still logically conveying what it wants to convey. Now, some common errors that we can find in non-essential clauses is that a sentence can just omit one of those commas. Now, instead of putting two commas, they'll just remove one of the incorrect options, will remove one comma, or both the commas would be missing. So you have to be very careful when you're reading these sentences as to if this part of information required or not. If it's required, then it has to be without commas. If it's not required, then we want both the commas. We don't want just one of the commas, but both of them. Look at these incorrect examples. The Statue of Liberty, which was gifted by France in 1886. Now, in the previous slide, we did see that this information is basically extra. So not putting a comma over here would be incorrect. And putting just one comma and omitting the other will also be incorrect. So these are the incorrect type of options that you would find for such a question type. Now, the best way to go ahead is start eliminating option which has two commas. That will set an idea as to if you really require that information or not. By trying to eliminate the option with two commas in it, you'll know if that part is essential or not essential. So this would be the right approach to take up. How do you fix these non-essential clauses? You will identify the clause, if the clause can be removed or not, or if you require that particular clause to make some sense out of the sentence. You will have to ensure this first and then start thinking if you require both the commas or not. If that part is essential, you don't require any comma. If that part is non-essential, you require both the commas, not just one. Now, let's understand when it comes to transition words and phrases, how will this non-essential bit work? Now, we did see in the previous bit that there was a particular clause, a few words coming together and creating a non-essential bit. But you might also find transition words like however, in fact, moreover, on the other hand, as examples in between two commas. You can find a sentence which says comma, however, comma. In that case, what is the sentence trying to say? The sentence is trying to say that basically this however in the sentence is not required. If you eliminate the however from the sentence will still make sense grammatically. Let's look at an example for the same. The Eiffel Tower was completed in 1889. It has, comma, in fact, comma, become a symbol of Paris. Now, because this particular transition word is given in between two commas, let me try and remove this and see if the sentence is still making grammatical sense. Now, what I'm left with is it has become a symbol of Paris. This is what I have, and it makes complete sense. Right? Saying that it has become a symbol of Paris is a grammatically correct sentence, which means that this transition word is correctly placed in between two commas. Let's look at another example. The Eiffel Tower was completed in 1889. It's still, comma, however, comma. remains one of the most visited landmarks in the world. Now, in this case, I have however in between two commas, so let me remove this and read the sentence. It still remains one of the most visited landmarks in the world. It makes complete grammatical sense, which means, however, is correctly placed in between two commas. This is how you can identify if a transition word or a phrase is correctly placed between two commas or not. Simply eliminate it from the sentence and read the sentence without it to see if the grammatical structure is still being followed. Now, how do we handle these long non essential clauses? You will come across these advanced level questions which have these long non essential clauses. What do you do in such a scenario? Always look for transitions like which, who, whose, and where. These transition words, most of the times, they begin the non essential clauses. When you see a comma which, or a comma who, or a comma whose, or a comma where, you should know probably this is non essential bit, so be careful already. Now let's look at some examples. The Taj Mahal, which was built in the 1600s, is a beautiful monument. Now, there is a which over here, right? So, there is a possibility that this part, till this part, there is a non essential clause. Why did I say that the part ends over here? Because this is the verb. I definitely need the subject and a verb pair to create a complete sentence, correct? So, the verb has to be out of the non essential clause. Not placing a comma over here would be totally incorrect. Like, if you eliminate this, the Taj Mahal is a beautiful monument is a complete grammatically and meaning wise complete sentence, which means I definitely want to put a comma here and another comma here, or even a dash and a dash over here, or even a bracket or a bracket here. So, this is how identifying the words that the sentences are using, like which, who, whose, where, this should trigger and tell you that probably a non essential clause is coming up. Now let's practice this technique with a few examples. Original sentence: The Great Wall of China, which stretches over 13,000 miles, is one of the most famous landmarks in the world. Now I do see a comma which over here. I do see another comma here. How do I see if this is a non-essential bit? I will remove this bit and reread the sentence. The Great Wall of China is one of the most famous landmarks in the world. It makes a complete grammatically correct sentence. The meaning is completely conveyed, which means this is indeed a non-essential bit and it is correctly placed in between two commas. What if I remove this comma from here? I will not be placing the commas correctly in this case, because what we require to show non-essential clause is two commas, not one. I hope you understood this. Now let's see a misconception among students when it comes to two commas. Two commas do not always indicate a non-essential clause. Guys, remember, not always it's going to be a non-essential clause. You'll have to check if that's a non-essential clause. You'll have to remove that piece of information from the sentence and see if the grammatical structure is still maintained and if the meaning is still conveyed in the correct manner or not. These are the two conditions that you have to make sure you are following in order to understand if the two commas are correctly placed or not. Let's see an example for this. New York, which is one of the most populated cities in the world, has a thriving economy. Now let me remove this information because this is comma which and then I have another comma. Let me remove this information. Now the new sentence is New York has a thriving economy. This is completely correct. The meaning is conveyed correctly. The sentence is complete grammatically, which means this is correctly placed in between two commas and this is extra information explaining something extra about New York. It can be removed from the sentence. Now let's look at another example. During the 1800s, New York, New York was one of the most populated cities in the world, another comma, and today, it remains a major economic center. So the first two commas that I see is over here. Right? Let me remove this information. Then I have another comma and another comma here, so let me remove this as well. Now what am I left with? During the 1800s, it remains a major economic center. Is it telling you anything correctly? Like the grammar is missing because what is this it referring to? I don't know. Also, the meaning is not conveyed in the manner what the sentence wants to convey. The sentence wants to say that New York was one of the most populated cities in the world and today this is what is happening. So clearly the meaning is getting changed. The grammatical structure doesn't make sense. So Incorrect sentence would be to say during the 1800s it remains a major economic center. It just doesn't make sense. Which means that this bit is not conveying a non essential information. So, what is it really conveying? So, this comma, the first comma that you see over here, is for during the 1800s. This is the extra information. We can eliminate this, and still we have the complete meaning that the sentence wants to convey. New York was one of the most populous cities in the world. Another comma over here, the comma before and, is basically to show this is comma and guys, comma fanboys. It's connecting two complete sentences together. So here these two commas were not used to show non-essential information. They were used to show something else. They had a different role to play. So not every time that you see two commas, it's going to be something non-essential. You have to be very careful about where the two commas are placed. They can have different roles to play. The simple structure to follow over here is, guys, when you have two commas, remove that piece of information and see if the grammatical structure is still maintained, if the meaning is still being correctly conveyed. Now, recognizing essential and non-essential clauses. We did talk about non-essential clauses till now, but now we are going to see something about the essential clauses as well. Now, look at this example. Jazz music, an important cultural export from the US, has influenced musicians worldwide. Now, there is a comma here, and there's another comma here. Let's remove this bit, like simply cut this out. What am I left with? Jazz music has influenced musicians worldwide. It is grammatically correct. It is also conveying the correct meaning that the sentence wants to convey. So jazz music has influenced musicians worldwide is completely correct, and so the commas are correctly placed. This is non-essential information or a non-essential clause. Let's look at another example. The concert, which featured a famous jazz musician, comma, comma, was sold out in less than an hour. Now, let's simply remove this. Again, let's remove this bit. What am I left with? The concert was sold out in less than an hour. Grammatically, it's correct, yes, but am I still getting the same meaning out of this sentence? I'm talking about a particular concert, right? The one that featured a famous jazz musician. I'm talking about that particular concert. So, this information is important for the sentence. This information is important to convey which concert I'm referring to. So, this is not non essential over here, this is essential. In this case, the clause which featured a famous jazz musician is essential because it provides crucial context. Without it, the sentence becomes incomplete. So, this is how you'll have to understand even the meaning of the sentence to know if a piece of information is essential or non essential. How do you fix misplaced commas and non essential clauses? Make sure that you check if something is non essential or not by removing the commas. Leave that particular phrase out and read the sentence. If the sentence is making logically correct meaning or if it's conveying a correct grammatical structured sentence. This is going to help you understand if the commas are being misplaced. Let's try and fix the misplaced commas in this particular sentence that I have. Ice hockey invented in Canada. There are two commas over here, so this looks like a non-essential as per the commas placed. Remains one of the most popular sports, again a comma, worldwide. So two commas here, a comma over here. What is the structure of the sentence? Well, let's try to remove this first. Ice hockey remains one of the most popular sports worldwide. Okay, now it's making sense without this information, which means this is correctly placed in between two commas. It's just some extra information about ice hockey. The main meaning of the sentence that it's trying to convey is that it remains one of the most popular sports worldwide. Right? Now, placing a comma over here before worldwide is making this information non-essential. So let's remove this. Let's remove this and reread the sentence. Ice hockey remains one of the most popular sports. Where, the sentence is trying to say that it's worldwide. It remains one of the most popular sports worldwide, not just as per a country or a particular region. It's worldwide. So that's quite essential for the meaning of the sentence, right? Which means I cannot place this comma before worldwide. This is an essential information, right? This is how you have to correct the misplaced commas when it comes to non-essential clauses. Meaning is completely important to understand, to know what part of the sentence is essential or non-essential. Now you saw this sentence where they used a comma worldwide, right? Now sometimes non-essential information can come in between a sentence. The sentence is there, there is a comma, it continues, there's another comma, and there's, the rest of the sentence. Another structure can be the sentence starting off with a non essential clause. When the sentence is starting with a non essential clause, it will obviously be beginning with a capital alphabet, whatever that is. Right? It can't begin with a comma. Right? So sometimes you will find the non essential information at the start of the sentence, it will continue, there will be a comma here, and the rest of the sentence will just go on. The third way you can find a non essential clause is that a sentence is going on and then there's a comma, some piece of information, and then a period. In this case, this is the non-essential bit. So sometimes it's not necessary that the non-essential bit is always going to be in between two commas in between a sentence. If that non-essential bit is at the start, it will obviously not be starting with a comma. It has to start with a capital alphabet, end with a comma. If that non-essential part is at the end of the sentence, it will start with a comma, but it will have to end with a period, right? So remember, this is something that you will find in the examples that you take up for this particular topic. Now, let's understand essential clauses when it comes to that. One rule that I want you to remember by heart is that a comma will never be placed before or after that. No comma should be placed before or after that. Any option that's putting a comma before or after that, eliminate it straight up. Correct? Now, what is the point of using a that? It basically begins a crucial information of the sentence. It will give you an information that is essential. So you will not be putting a comma before that to begin that essential information. Let's look at an example. Dogs are one of the best animals, comma, that people can adopt because they are loyal, comma, friendly, and live for many years. Anyways, now it's starting with a that. Right? Now, as per the rules that I just told you, I will never place a comma before that. And a simple explanation is that it's giving me an essential information. I cannot place a comma before that. I don't want you to dive deep into this particular concept. Just remember this as a trick, as something that you just see and can eliminate very easily. No placing a comma before or after that. That's it. Now let's understand optional use of that in an essential clause. Sometimes you will find the word that stating something essential. Sometimes the sentence will simply omit a that from the sentence. Let's look at an example. Cats are one of the most independent pets that you can own because they require less attention. Usage of that is correct over here. Now, this is also a correct sentence. Cats are one of the most independent pets you can own because they require less attention. Now, here we have eliminated that and it's still correct. Replacing a that is not a compulsion. You can use a that or even omit it. It's still correct. Now let's understand commas with names and titles. Extremely important. A lot of questions have been asked on the digital SAT when it comes to comma and using these commas with the names and titles. Names and titles can either be essential to a sentence or not be essential. It completely depends on the meaning that the sentence is trying to convey. Now, ideally, we've been taught that a comma should always be placed before a name or title. Now, that rule is not valid. That's not the ideal rule. The rule is that it depends on the context that we are talking about to understand if you want to place a comma or not around the names and titles. Let's look at some examples to understand this. When a name or title show up in the middle of a sentence, remember when it's showing up in the middle of the sentence, neither at the beginning nor the end, middle of the sentence, there are typically two correct options. Either the name or the title will be placed in between two commas or there will be no comma at all. In very, very rare cases, we have seen a single comma. But when it comes in the middle of the sentence, you can put two commas or you can go for no commas at all. Again, depending on the context that we are talking about. Right? To determine whether commas are necessary, treat the name or title as non-essential word or phrase, like what we did earlier with the non-essential clauses. If there are two commas being placed before or after the title or the name, simply eliminate the title or the name and see how is it impacting your sentence meaning wise. Cross it out and see how is it impacting. Let's look at an example for the same. Now, Isaac Newton and his colleague, Robert, comma, were key figures in the development of modern physics. Now let's remove this information. Let's remove the name completely. What do I have? Isaac Newton and his colleague were key figures in the development of modern physics. What are we losing out? We're losing out on the name. Right? We don't know who this colleague is. What's his name? I don't know. So this is an important piece of information that is being removed from the sentence if I place the name in between two commas. So I'm going to eliminate these two commas simply to show the significance of this person, that this person is important for the sentence. I need to know who the colleague is. I cannot place the name in between two commas. It's as simple as that. Now let's look at some more questions. Marie Curie and her husband Pierre made groundbreaking discoveries in the field of radioactivity. Now two commas are being placed over here. Remove the name. Just simply remove this. What do I have? Mary and her husband made a groundbreaking discoveries in the field of radioactivity. Now, removing the name from here, it implies that the husband is not important, right? It's not important. It's only Mary that we need to know. But that's not true, correct? We are talking about groundbreaking discoveries in the field of radioactivity done by both of them. So the name is pretty crucial part of the sentence. Therefore, I will be removing the two commas placed before and after the husband's name. It is an important part of the sentence. I'm making this person's name important part of the sentence because the sentence is conveying so. The sentence is talking about groundbreaking discoveries made by both of them and not just by one. So the name is important. I will remove the commas. Now let's see this as well. There's a simple rule to keep in mind when using commas with names and titles. Commas around a name suggests that individual is the only person or thing being discussed. Again, read it again. Commas around a name shows exclusivity, right? It shows that this is the single individual, only person that's been discussed. No comma around a name implies that individual is just one of the many people or things. Using commas can completely change the meaning. It's going to change the meaning of your sentence, right? Placing commas will show that a name or title suggests uniqueness. There's something unique. This is the person, the only person. But when you don't have commas, it means that there are other people or things being discussed. Let's look at an example to understand this concept better. Elon Musk's friend John Doe was present at the event. So placing these two commas over here, it shows that John Doe is Elon Musk's only friend. Now understand logically, is that possible? Like a person having only one friend. Here we have only one sentence, guys. Ideally in the exam you'll have a text. You'll have a short text for more contextual understanding. But logically, an individual can't have just one friend, right? Like no other person that he can call friend to. If I want to show that this person, John Doe, is Musk's only friend, then this is correctly placed. If I want to show that no, he's not the only friend, then I will remove the commas. It means that he's just one of his multiple friends. Now again, let's take up another sentence to understand this rule better. The debate over Serena Williams' career was fueled by her coach Patrick. Now there is no comma over here, right? Now when there's no comma over here, it suggests that Serena had more than one coach, which doesn't make sense logically. A coach is single, right? An individual will probably have only one coach. So what I need to do is I need to place a comma. So by placing a comma, I'm making this person special. I'm saying that this is the only coach Serena Williams has. By not putting a comma, I'm trying to say that she probably has more than one coach. I hope you've understood how to apply these rules. This is a complex topic. Make sure that you have made notes. If not, go run through this video again. Make your notes and practice questions on this particular topic more. The key takeaways would be comma around names or titles suggest one-of-a-kind status. No commas around names or titles imply there are others. Think carefully about the intended meaning of the sentence before choosing if you want to use a comma or not. It's not just about grammatically correct sentence. It's also about the context that's been conveyed, the meaning that's been trying to convey through the sentence or the whole text. You have to pay attention to both the details. Thank you so much.